This is Robert Roth from Truly, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking Podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Antietam, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Robert Roth of Truly, for fans that remember Fast Stories from Kid Coma.
Seattle Legends. Some fantastic stories. This is a part 1 of 2. Part 2 will be somewhere in November-ish. He's got a lot of stories to tell. Let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Robert, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Antietam.
Robert, this is Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, man, we are so excited to have you. Thank you for all the correspondence. Obviously, thank you for doing this. So let's get right into this. You recently signed a new partnership with Worldwide Entertainment Group with Dave Laury. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about this partnership and how did it all come together for you?
Well, it's come together very recently and very, very quickly and serendipitously. And it's just kind of an amazing thing that we weren't necessarily expecting at this point in our life and our career, whatever, but it's just feels sort of like destined to have happened. I've always known something would happen with this band, and I've never been, I think in the early days I was anxious and young and really trying to push it to happen immediately. And I always felt like this band was a slow burn and it would take a while to catch on. And I've never lost faith, but it's still just amazing to see that we're now in a position of, addressing this band full time in a serious way for the first time in 30 years. That's crazy to say out loud, but yeah. And so Dave was Jeff Buckley's manager, and he's a veteran from the industry and in many aspects and in many corners, going way back to the 80s and the New Music Seminar and in New York, and he's rooted there. And so he, took a long hiatus after Jeff died, and he wrote a book, and he's done a lot of other things. And, around that same time, Truly sort of, stepped back after making a few records and working hard for a few years. And so it's just kind of an amazing moment that now we are working together and putting a lot of focus on the future of the band and what we want to do next. I've always felt like there's a lot of I wish in all this time that we had made more records and more of the things that we worked on had been released. And so now that's the focus is cool. Not only getting us back out there performing, but like releasing things that haven't been released. And there's just, we made this very unique template back in the day in the early 90s. And I still feel like there's so much untapped creative potential in that coming from that fountain to draw from. It's really our own territory. It's our own genre. It's our own sound. And I've always felt like this nagging regret that we hadn't mined more from it. And I'm just unbelievably excited and surprised to be back at it. So that's it, really.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about, the band's still been performing live, and when did that interest start up again? And can you talk a little bit about your live performances?
Sure. And so I think that the last, before we took a hiatus, we toured around 98. Hero had his second kid. Mark has been the king of cool retail in Ellensburg, Washington, which is east of the mountains. And so he's been keeping that going since the early days of the band, and still keeping it going to this day successfully. And so we toured in 98, and there was issues back home with business and family. So we had to bail on a tour, which is unusual for us. We never cancel shows. We don't bail on things, but there was just extreme circumstances, and we went on an unplanned hiatus for a long time. We did release another record in 2000, which was basically unreleased material, and nearly toured Europe in around 2000. Based on that, it came out on a British label. But so around 2008, Mark and I both became dads around the same time. I think his daughter Hazel is about 3 months younger than my kid Henry. And so we always, I think a little before that, we had our roadie passed away, and he was sort of our, they used to say on those 60 records, spiritual guru. He was sort of an uncle, father figure to us, and we all convened at this funeral, and the idea of playing together started. And we did start writing and doing just some casual things. And this is around 2006. And then out of the blue, we got invited to play Ascana Rock Festival in Vittorio Gasteiz, if I'm pronouncing it right. Mm-hmm. It's a big festival that's in Basque territory, northern Spain, near the border of France. And it was a dream come true. We got $35,000 to play a 40-minute set. The Sex Pistols and Ray Davis from Kinks and the Sonics, and Dinosaur Jr. and John Cale from the Velvet Underground, and yes, John Spencer Blues Explosion, and it was rock and roll heaven. And so we just we rented out a Spanish the top of this house, and we brought our kids, and we hung out for a week, and we just had a great time. And we hadn't been a band for a long time, 13 years, something like that. Anyway, and we just, really realized that we had something special, and that we were also had a lot of other things going on in our lives. And so we just kept it going. And I just knew at some point something would happen, and several things have, like good shows, and we released a single, but it's just, we've been hanging in there because we've got something to do. I don't know what. And it seems like now we're actually going to take some very steady steps forward. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, this past 2025, February exactly, Truly re-released the band's second full-length studio album, Feeling You Up. Can you talk a little bit more about the re-release of Feeling You Up? And the original release is sought after by fans everywhere. I know the original copies that are still floating around out there, it's kind of in high demand. Talk a little bit more about the decision of re-releasing Feeling You Up, and I guess the whole process for it.
Well, there's a label in Spain, and funny enough, it's the same part of the world I was just talking about, which is Basque territory, northern Spain, and it's a label called Bang Records. And there's a Bang Records in America that goes way back to, I think, the late 50s or early 60s. But this is, this is something different. But they do a ton of, like, Australian swamp punk rock, the Beast of Burden, related bands from the Bad Seeds and the Beast of Burden, Scientists. They did a live Lou Reed record, things from Jeffrey Lee Pierce from Gun Club. So they're like a kind of a boutique label, and they got a hold of me back in 4 years ago, 2022, and they do really good quality pressings, and so they wanted to release our stuff. And so we rolled out with the Kid Coma record, double vinyl, the gatefold, which we didn't have that on the original release. Mm-hmm. So they're into quality pressing and packaging. So anyway, so Feeling You Up was just the logical next thing to do, because they did really well with the Kid Coma. They did 2 pressings of it, and that was the next thing to happen. And Feeling You Up was an intro record for us. Some of those songs were songs that we demoed for Capitol, because our A&R person left for Elektra and wanted us to follow them to Elektra Records. And we were nervous of, like, well, what if this record never comes out, because at the last minute we're trying to pull some maneuver, and Capitol really wanted to keep it. So anyway, but eventually our lawyer and manager at the time convinced us to leave Capitol. So we had these demos left over, and that was Feeling You Up. So to me, it was sort of like outtakes and demos and things like that. But it sort of has served as our second record. And for some people, they prefer it because it is more focused on individual songs. And Fast Stories from Kid Coma is more of it's not a rock opera, but it's a conceptual record. Right. It's thematic. It tells a story of a kind. At the time, I think we thought of it as a soundtrack to a movie that hadn't existed yet anyway. So it was sort of us making a movie via the music. But Feeling You Up was made really quickly and with a lot less money, and just sort of scrapped together. But we are also in fine form, and I felt like confident that having spent a long time going from Sub Pop to Capitol Records during the making of Fast Stories from Kid Coma, that we could crank something out 6 weeks and it'd be pretty fucking good. It might not it might not be some epic thing like Kid Coma, but hey, we'll do that on the next record. But so here we are many, many years later, and I'm still trying to make that happen, and it looks like there's some momentum to finally make a real intentional album again. So
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we're excited about that. One of my favorite songs on there is the track 10, The Repulsion. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the making of that song?
Well, that song, that's an outtake from the demos or the tracking sessions from Fast Stories from Kid Coma. And it's one that I felt like while we were making the record that it was going to be primary, like it was going to be, like with Blue Flame Forward and all those songs. But for whatever reason, I couldn't even tell you. I'd have to really dig deep. But it just, other songs got in front of it in terms of getting done and people's excitement and priority. And, before we went to New York to mix the record, I polled everybody involved, Mark and Hero and our A&R guy and the people at Capitol Records. I'm like, okay, so we're going to be flying to go mix this record at the Magic Shop, and I have like 3 hours worth of music. Like, we need to narrow this down. I'm going to kill myself trying to finish all of this, and then everybody picks their favorite. Like, I need to call it, and I could get no consensus. So that one got left off. And Aliens on Alcohol, it's not like a catchy top 40 hit song, but it to me, as an album track, it's really in a kind of a proggy way. It's sort of like a backbone to the theme of the album. It was, we had like a 3-week debate amongst the band and the manager and the label about were we going to lose So Strange or Aliens on Alcohol. And I wrote So Strange on my own, demoed it. It was my song. Aliens on Alcohol was something that Hero just came out of him at a rehearsal. I happened to capture it on a cassette tape and heard it when I was driving down to San Francisco. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. And I was banging the door for that song. That I wanted Aliens and Alcohol on there. It was like, no, So Strange is catchier. I love them both, but we had to lose one, so that one got lost. But now it's on the new reissue, and to me, that's always now that there's not time constraints of CDs and whatnot. I mean, that's always part of the record for me. So.
Fantastic. Well, my favorite track on Feeling You Up is Air Raid. And the reason why it catches my ear, because it takes me back to that Bowie Iggy Pop collaboration type of sound.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Am I totally off when I say that? Is there some inspiration?
No, I mean, I love that. That was, interestingly enough, I was listening to all that kind of stuff, Lust for Life and I love that era of Iggy and Bowie. So no, that's real cool. I don't think that we were trying to necessarily directly go for that with that song, but I think that was in our, just part of our listening and our overall aesthetic at that time. Was things like Roxy Music and Station to Station and stuff, and then Iggy's like his late 70s. Idiot, all that stuff, so that was definitely some of that vibe in there. So that's
absolutely
cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So you kind of alluded to Hero writing some of the, songs. Looking through some of the liner notes, you can see it's great when bands can share the wealth and let some of the other guys' songs in and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about the writing collaboration and how it worked with Truly?
Well, the thing is I do write a majority of the songs, and Hero and Mark, they would agree with that. But the thing is, I would never write the kinds of songs I write if I wasn't in a band with those guys, because I'm inspired by them and what they bring to it musically. So I write for the band. I write for what I think would be interesting for a band made up of the three of us. I try to provide material that would be interesting that we could do. And as I get older, I realize that pretty much anything I write, if those guys are involved, it becomes truly without a lot of effort. Like, this is not a band that has really long meetings about what we want to sound like or what we want to do or how to make it better. Or you should do that, or you should do that. This is like that second marriage, they had Soundgarden and Mark had the Trees, and I had my first band that was kind of my only band other than like a real brief chance I might be in Nirvana, but this, it really is my second band. And I think when you play with the right people, you don't have to talk it into the ground. You don't have to premeditate it or contrive it. It just kind of happens. And that's what keeps me coming back and wanting to do it, because when it's just me, then I have to think about a lot more. I find the right people to play with, or I play everything too, but just they have such a strong, expressive voice as musicians. Mark is also a songwriter. He has a very strong voice as a solo artist himself. A Hero, legendary and very unique musician. So when it's Truly, that's what I'm cooking up the meal for, is for that. It's something very hard to put my finger on, but it's the combination. And I wouldn't make the kind of music I make with Truly if it was without them. Not because I wouldn't want to, but they bring something out in me and vice versa. And I think that's what makes band have chemistry, I guess. So.
Yeah, you're well said. But outside of the normal re-release of an album, the physical product, did you and the rest of the band did you have, or the label have any ideology behind unique physical packaging for the album as far as a physical copy went?
Well, I'll talk about the two of them briefly, but a little bit separately. So the first one was the Fast Stories from Kid Coma, and the cover was I used to live in this house in North Seattle, and my landlords were upstairs, and I had this basement that had a piano and a fireplace, and just a quiet place where I could create and go to work during the week and whatever. And so they went out of town, and the guy had this. It was a science book from the 1950s that had these bizarre illustrations, and one of them was the cover of Fast Stories, and it's called the Lunar Halo. It was like painted in the 1950s, and I thought, oh man, that's the cover for all this new stuff I'm writing for this new band, Truly. Like it kind of really fits. So, so getting an opportunity to do it again, we didn't have a lot of the original resources. But what I did have is some negatives from Charles Peterson. He's famous for shooting, so many Sub Pop album covers in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, Nirvana's career and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, etc. So these photos were amazing. And they had this really vibrant blue that really matched the color. And I didn't have access to those when we were on Capitol back in the mid 90s. But all of a sudden I'm like, damn, this would be great. So, I was working with my wife and we did a lot of back and forth and just kind of recreated the artwork. We didn't have the original pieces to work with. So I had to take like the Japanese cover and get it scanned and whatnot. So, and since then I found the original color photocopy. I took the bus downtown in I think 90 or 1991 to downtown Seattle, the Seattle Public Library, and they had a color photocopier for $1.50. You could make a color photocopy. That was just mind blowing at the time. I'm like, this is a game changer. I'm going to Kinko's and doing shitty flyers, 8x12 on it, So I found an even better resolution of that cover. So who knows? The next reissue may have even more of a vibrant cover. But I really do like the new artwork. To me, it really fits the album even better than the original, which, I was happy with that too. But this has liner notes. But just some of those unearthed photos are real cool. We didn't use any filters, zero Photoshop on the photos. There's a lot of Photoshop and everything else, to make it work. Those photos, we left them just 12 by 12, really big, because they just looked great. And Charles was like, if you want, I could do a little touch up. I'm like, if you want to, please, they're yours. Go right ahead. But we love them. And he was like, it's fun. So, that was just a nice surprise too, along with everything else. So.
Very good.
I'm really happy with the reissue. Yeah. And then Feeling You Up, that was a hard one to remaster. I'll get into that a little bit. Again, we didn't really have the original artwork that Jeff Kleinsmith from Sub Pop had done. Mm-hmm. And he also had a hand in the Sub Pop version of Fast Stories from Kid Coma. They did a double vinyl version as well. So, and he's great to work with. We get along well and have a good, simpatico on how to do things. So, but he didn't have any of the original stuff. So again, it was a case of getting it, scanned professionally and then trying to reinvent it in a way. And so, in the early days of that record being developed, we were in London and touring in Europe, and a really famous photographer, Ross Halfin, who's, shot The Who and the Stones and Nick Cave and, everybody.
Yeah.
He's more famous than we are, that's for sure. So, so he a few years back, I guess about 20 years ago, his office or he himself gave us the rights to use those photos, and they seemed right for the second record because that was why we were touring on Fast Stars and writing for the new record. And the new record, as I said earlier, was, most of it were things that were left over, or they were Capitol and our new A&R guy asking us to go make demos and to present them with songs. And I think the idea was that when we had 10 to 12 songs that this guy greenlighted, then they would give us the budget to make another record. And we were literally just doing like a weird, like kind of fake dance just to like get the money. Like, what do you want? Should I kick my leg to the left? What do you want me to do? Like, I don't think he really got the Kid Coma record, and Capitol wanted us to do something completely different outside our wheelhouse and reinvent it for whatever they thought was going to be next. And meanwhile, we're getting these amazing reviews on Kid Coma, and people are loving it. But after Kurt died in Seattle and in the industry, grunge was dead, if you want to use that word. Like, imitators of grunge they were all the rage, Creed, Silverchair, whatever, but anybody from that scene, it was like, yeah, you guys are killing yourselves and things are going bad for you. It's depressing. We need something more uplifting. And but the irony was that, whatever was going on in Seattle, if you want to call it grunge or just Pacific Northwest music, whatever stupid label that doesn't matter you want to put on it, the interest in it has continued.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this from having toured abroad as a solo artist and just from correspondence with people. And whatever was going on then, it's still resonating within the culture the same way that punk rock or the 60s or any other regional scene, it continues to influence and inspire people. And but in Seattle, it's like people were running away from it. And so it was a hard place to be, to see the game change that quickly. And it was also sad that we lost a dear person, and a dear friend. And then at the same time, it was very confusing as an artist, because all of a sudden your instincts aren't being rewarded. They're being questioned, so it's, which is okay. I mean, that's life. That's life as an artist. It's you find another angle, you find another way to respond to the conversation. But, it wasn't easy for a lot of people, myself included. But we kept doing stuff. That's what you do.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'm going to go a little more modern. Truly had a new single in 2021 with Wheels on Fire. Can you talk? And I believe there was another one too. But can you talk a little bit about the releasing the new singles around that time frame?
Yeah. So we've been toying with making a new record for a while, since we did the As Cana thing. And as I said, we had other things going on, kids, whatnot. And, but we have a bunch of stuff in the can, but the bunch of things that we, some of them are close to being done. Some of them are, just still sitting there, and new things are being written. But, a good friend of ours, Rob Daly, he went out on tour with us in 2015. We did a 20th anniversary tour, starting at Mercury Lounge in New York. Just did the big cities, but he put out, bands in Seattle, like, Tom Price's Desert Classic and Super Suckers and some, other bands from the Seattle scene. So, he wanted to do a single, and, it motivated us to just at least get a couple of them mixed and ready to put out. And, that's basically it. And it sold out in a few days. It was gone, so it's hard to believe how much time has gone by. Not only since the 90s, but just since a few years ago, releasing that single. It's like there's so much music that could have been released this whole time. So at some point, it's we'll catch up and get it out there. But right now we're working on brand new things. So I'm excited about that more than anything.
It's kind of in today's climate. There is more of that, releasing singles and maybe even EPs rather than the full length. But
Right.
You said the band's been toying around with doing another album. Do you guys have the plans to maybe release a few singles and
working with this new management group and Dave and Sandy, and we're going to release a bunch of singles, I think, in the next year.
Nice.
Some of them are going to be brand new. Some of them will be things that are going to be finally be completed or remixed, maybe a cover or two. But we're, as we're working towards a record, rather than just waiting for the record to be done before we do anything, we're going to start putting out stuff, old, new, all of it. That's the plan. And it wasn't our plan. It was their plan. I'm like, that's a fucking good plan, because it needs to happen. And so sometimes I dread deadlines, but I also have learned to really love them over the years. And it's how things get done. It's when they have to be done. And so I'm glad to be our own boss. Interesting thing about Truly is that we went into the Capitol Tower and said, we've got this song, could be a single. This one would be a good video. Like, we're trying to figure out how we can fit into the game. And they were like, just be artists and push the envelope. Don't worry about singles. Don't worry about just, make albums, like be an album band like Floyd or Zeppelin or whatever, like a 70s band. We're like, are you sure? And so we've pursued that. So anyway, we're while we try to make any kind of bigger statement, we just want to just put out a lot of different kinds of things that will surprise people, things that will be a little outside of what we've done before, and just some things that are maybe straight ahead and a little immediate to grasp. Somewhere along the line, I hope within the next year and a half, we have a full-length record, which I think we already have at least more than half of that done. So,
well,
cool.
Before we go on to discuss your 2004 solo album, I guess maybe the question in general, you bring this subject up about releasing singles over releasing, full-length albums ahead of time. And I guess that was kind of the way the paradigm was back in the 50s, I guess. They would release singles upon singles upon singles on 45s until the full-length album was out. And it just kind of seems like, as years went by from the 50s, that paradigm had shifted. Now it seems like we're kind of going back to the way the old-fashioned way of things are being done. Right. But obviously there's no 45s anymore because everything's on Bandcamp and it streams and everything else. But
I miss the B-sides.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't get the B-sides with the new singles.
The deep cuts.
Right.
And for you, that who's been an artist, a musician, whatever you want to call yourself, all of the above, is releasing singles for a band like Truly, that it's always been like a very album-oriented style of band. Is it good for you to do it like this, or do you feel like staying true to releasing the full-length album all at once and shoving it down everybody's throat at one time, the way you're doing it, or is that just too much for people these days?
I love this question because this has really been on my mind, and I love great singles. And the thing is if nobody is releasing your record and you're just like, yeah, what are you up to these days? I'm working on a record. Then it's going to be a quadruple record concept album, rock opera, whatever. But when somebody's like, hey, we need a single and you need to get it done in 3 weeks, you get to work and you get it done because you want it to come out and you want to work. You want to release something. So that's what I was saying earlier about deadlines. I'm actually really up for if this is the new paradigm, as you're saying, and as our new managers are saying, or not saying to not do a record, but fuck yeah, like I just give me the parameters and I'll get in there with these guys and we'll entertain people and come up with something. I love great singles. I love catchy songs, and I wouldn't want to just do that, and I probably wouldn't want to just make conceptual albums either. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's nice to be commissioned. It's nice when there's something motivating about, okay, we need this from you, and it needs to be no more than 150 words or whatever. Like it's a essay, like, okay, cool. All right. I'm going to try to get my point across in this amount of time. And when you have unlimited time or unlimited budget or unlimited studio time, it can be enough to hang yourself. Like if things are too unlimited, and I'm not the first person to make this point, obviously, but having some parameters is a great idea. And I did that to myself when we made the Kid Coma record. I'm like, I'm leaning towards, like, I spent a long time exploring major keys as a punk rock kid and psychedelic kid, into, all that kind of stuff, Rain Parade and Sid Barrett and whatever. But like, I want to do a record, and the parameters are minor keys, minor sevenths, like more of like a Isaac Hayes soul, kind of like dark, and I can explore major keys and other things, but this is going to be conceptual, like the way a movie director or an author is like, this is the tone. So and that was a self-imposed parameter, because we were really just like, do whatever the hell you want, which is kind of odd. So I guess that's it. I don't mind having some constraints, as long as they're not permanent. It's just to get the project done. It's kind of exciting. So, and that's really been on Hero in my mind a lot the last few weeks. And we're getting Mark kind of roped into it too, because that's kind of his thing. Mark has always been the guy, like, when I wrote Married in the Playground, that was the first song Hero played on, on that first EP. And I had to be talked into it by Mark and Jonathan from Sub Pop, like, this is a catchy song. And sure enough, locally anyway, it was in the top 10 requested songs of the day at our version of K-Rock, which is 107.7 The End, Marco Collins. So it was like, okay, cool. So sometimes I need to be pushed in a certain direction. I don't mind. I'll push back if I feel like it's uncomfortable or not, just completely right for me. But I do a lot of different kind of stuff, and so I love collaboration. I love a sounding board when there are people I can trust, because I'm pretty astute, pretty smart, but at the same time I'm smart enough to know when I'm too deep in it and I need an outside opinion, and I welcome it. So, that's why I love working with Mark and Hero. That's why I love having a manager now again. And we'll see if I'm ready for an actual music producer. It depends on who it is, because I'm used to doing that too. But life's too short to do it all yourself. So, and that solo record you asked me about, that was me knowing that I probably wouldn't get that many opportunities to do everything myself. And anytime I reached out for any help in 2002, 3, whatever, when I was making that, it never panned out. They couldn't show up or whatever. I was meant to have karmically, whatever, I would carry all that weight and learn all those things and, torture bear the brunt of my process the way I made other people bear the brunt of my process, and kind of see what it feels like on the other side to deal with me, being the only one dealing with me and my indecisiveness at times or whatever, my process. And it was a lot of work, but I learned so much. But I also, having done it and been in like kind of not comparing myself as a talent wise or anything, but that, like when Prince plays on everything, or you hear, or like Townsend in his demos or whoever, like, it's a fucking lot of work. And I do enjoy it. It's very therapeutic. But when there's a deadline, it's so amazing to have really talented people there to help you get it done. And you can just focus on your own role. So I'm always open to that.
With that being said, in 2004, Someone Somewhere, your solo album, was released on Pattern 25 Records, I believe. As you said, you did it all. You played every instrument, you produced it, you engineered it.
I did the engineering, the editing. Yeah. I did really every bit of it. Yeah.
So the big question off that album was, how hard was it for you, as you're doing everything, was it for you to finally walk away from it and say, okay, I'm done tinkering with this thing. It's done. How hard was that for you? Talk about the challenges of taking something like that on it and then finally saying it's done.
That is such a great question, and I'm not sure I have a definitive answer because I'm still dealing with that when I work on music now. But I'm much more humble about, for instance, I've been working on something the last few days, and so I got it to a certain point. It's just a demo. It's for a new Truly song, but it's. And then I listened to it the next time. I'm like, oh man, it's a little slow. Maybe I should speed it up. And so I had to replace a bunch of bullshit to get it. When I sped up the tempo, the sound quality wasn't as good. So I had to kind of redo some stuff to get the better resolution. And it just takes so much time. And I'm just like, that's not really my talent. My talent, I think, is writing lyrics and singing and playing and, making color, whatever, with the sound. So it's really hard to know when you're done. And I think that that's the important thing about having other people around. It's that whole double slit experiment, Schrodinger's cat, when you're observing something, this isn't a great example of Schrodinger's cat, but are you really seeing it objectively? Somehow having somebody else observing the cat in the box with you, then you kind of see it. It's an interesting transference that happens when, it doesn't matter if it's a guy delivering the pizza to the studio late at night. And I used to piss off producers and engineers why are you letting the pizza guy listen? Why do you care what he thinks? I'm like, because he hasn't been here for 11 hours. Let's just see if he's even tapping his foot or his shoulders kind of moving to it, or it's interesting because when somebody walks in the room when you're playing something you're working on, I feel like for just a few minutes I see it and hear it how they see it. They may not even say anything, but all of a sudden, I don't think it's just being self-conscious, or I think it's something to do with that whole quantum observer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just cut to the chase. All of this is why I really do like to have somebody help me mix or master, because it's just too much of a mind fuck to do it yourself. As I just hopefully shown you why. It's a lot, but I love it. I hang in there till the end and I get it done. But it took a while. So it's just finding somebody you can trust is another answer to your question. At that time, I kept reaching out to people and just couldn't find the right person at the right time. Every other time I've made records with Truly, the right person has been there, but it's just, I think that was a situation where I was, for whatever reason, meant to really learn every bit of it myself. And then now free myself to not have to do it all myself. But now when I work with people, I know what they're going through. I kind of get it from all these different angles, and I'm a little more relaxed about the process, probably before having done everything myself.
Understandable, yeah.
Before we got started here today, Eric had said that you had played a live performance today, like an acoustic show.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So for about 10 years, I've been working with this company. They're called Gigs for You. It's through a friend of a friend. Actually, the guy from Thin White Rope, my friend Johnny, introduced me to these folks. And Ed Beeson, he was involved in KXP back when it was KCMU, and he's responsible for bringing James Brown to town. He's been around forever. Anyway, he started this company, and they put on music at SeaTac Airport. And they've been doing it for about 10 years, and there's 4 performers a day. And they, when we were doing it pre-COVID, there were 3-hour performances. Starting at 8, 9 in the morning, and I think the last one starts at noon. So it was, it's been a rare opportunity for working musicians in Seattle or in the Northwest to have a day gig, and make decent money. There's a PA, there's a sign with the artist's name and all that. So I've been working with them on and off for about 10 years, playing those gigs, helping run it, for about a year and a half, about 7-8 years ago, before I got busy with touring with one of the groups I was working with at the time. But I probably played that gig 500 times, 3-hour, 2-hour shows since COVID now, and it's just really kept my chops dialed and improved, and it's tested my stamina to be able to sit there and play 3 hours and not repeat a song and see if I can do it without taking a break. Like that's, it's been good for me. So, and it's been good for a lot of the musicians in Seattle. They have jazz and classical, country, rock, and then just even like weird psychedelic freak out rock and roll, like whatever I make. And I play whatever I want. They don't curate it. I just, I will literally write songs on the mic and play, if I do a cover, it's something I like. It's a Lou Reed song, or it's, like I played Moon River today. I do a very
nice.
psychedelic version of that. Arthur Lee in Love, whatever, just the Ramones, anything, so but mostly my own music. So I did one of those. I don't do it that much anymore. It's been probably like 5 months since I've done one, but it's just, I'm still on the roster, and I'm not able to do it as much, but it's good for me. I enjoy it. So
well, I got one last question for you. And
sure.
So this is going to be a really elongated question. So get ready. It's like I apologize ahead of time. So, there's no secret that Fast Stories from Kid Coma, put Truly on the rock and roll map. The album has stood the test of time sonically. It's got a cult following to this day. Did you ever think at that point when you were creating this album along with your bandmates that this album would have such an important stamp in the rock and roll community? And with that on the flip side of that is every song on Fast Stories from Kid Coma is a banger. I mean, it just is. It just everything just kind of glows.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's so cool.
And as I say this, I know this is going to be. I don't even know how you're going to answer this question. And the last part of this question is, did you or any member of the band, Hero or Mark, was there any reservations after you put this album out? Like, oh man, if we only did this or we only did that? Because let's face it, Fast Stories from Kid Coma is a cult classic. It just is.
It is.
Oh man, thank you. That's just wonderful to hear. So this is my take. This is my answer right now for that question. At the time, okay, so halfway through the album, Kurt died, and prior to him dying, and Kurt, at one point I nearly joined the band. There was other people who nearly joined the band. I wasn't the only person who nearly joined them before they went on. But, but I think that I felt like when we got signed and Kurt told Mark, hey, I'll put in a good word with Gary Gersh, he was our A&R guy and whatever. I wanted to do something that was, like you have the early mid 60s and the Hard Day's Night and Out of Our Heads, the Stones, and the more raw 60s sound eventually got kind of psychedelicized, for lack of a better word, and expanded. And so I felt like, I'm not this very visceral rock and roll side of Seattle is really, opened up so many pathways and has reached the world. But what's next? How do you follow this? I don't want to copy it. I don't want to just be another, person trying to do that, because and as we know, there's just thousands. But how do you follow this? Like, where is this going to go from here? Mm-hmm. And so this was just our attempt at trying to follow it up and trying to take it somewhere else. And I don't know if it's really that far off or that different. Looking back at probably, it's still just mostly guitars. I think people thought it was weird that we even used any keyboards. Like, keyboards are the enemy. I'm like, no, I felt that way too, because all the shitty, like, synth pop and hair music and whatever. But, you know, we were trying to do something different, and maybe we were going to be the Sgt. Pepper to Nirvana's Hard Day's Night, or I don't know, that's a terrible metaphor, but you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, after the Beatles broke through in the 60s revolution, a lot of like fat dudes with fat ties and cigar chomping dudes in smoke-filled rooms were like, we don't know what your kids are doing, but it's selling a lot of records. So here's some money. And then you get Jefferson Airplane and you get like freakier bands. So I felt like we were the second wave, even though we were, you know, Hero and Mark were very integrated into the first wave. And then it cut off. And when it cut off halfway through and Kurt died, I'm like, well, okay. This is a really scary fucking business to be in. Like, this is weird. Like, this is not the dream I thought it was. You know, when I drove by Capitol Tower when I was 4 or 5 years old in the family car, when we moved from Indiana to LA for a couple of years, my big brothers pointed up and said, that's where all the music comes from, or at least that's what I interpreted. You know, Beatles, Sinatra, Beach Boys. But man, it turned out to, no, this is fucking real, and it's scary, and it can tear you up. And I have more stories to confirm that. But I'm like, so to answer your question, to get back to that, I knew anything could happen. I knew our record could never come out. I knew there was a chance our record could just disappear within the first week it got released. I knew that the only thing I had control over, especially because we were orphans at Capitol at that point, they wanted to keep us, but we didn't have an A&R guy that got us. I just knew the only thing that I had any control over, or we did, was the quality of the music. And I'm like, let's just make something that no matter what happens, somebody will find this in a fucking used bin someday and be like, this is fucking cool.
Yes.
Like, let's just make something that lasts, because, you know, it's just like when you raise a kid. Let's give them all those tools so they can stand up on their own 2 feet, because anything can happen. A war could start. There could be a depression. There could be, a pandemic. A lot of things can happen in life. And so so with this band, I wasn't like, oh yeah, we're going to be in limos, like just on MTV or, whatever the rock star dream was a few years before. It's like, just make a really fucking good record, and that will have a life of its own, and it will find its way. That it has is just wonderful. And I'm humbled to hear that you guys think that it is that kind of record. And I'm humbled every time somebody suggests that it may be one of those kind of records. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's so cool. That's great. And I want to do more of this. And I want the next records to, and as I told Dave Laurie and our management 2 or 3 days ago, I'm like, the next thing is I want to make a music that people will give a shit about 30 years from now, and I don't know what it is, because it's not done, and it'll be a scrapping like process, and it'll be, we're going to have to go pretty deep into it to make that happen, just like we did. It's one thing to like get pats on the backs for things you did 30 years ago and then go, okay, now do more. Well, okay, if I'm going to do more, I'm going to have to go as deep. I'm going to have to work as hard. I don't think it's going to be as hard, because I think we have a better sense of what to do. And I think it'll be, if anything, much faster and quicker and more natural to us, because it's not far from us. It's more natural to us to do what we do. But at the same time, it just doesn't happen automatically. You have to kind of to shut everything out and kind of be open to it to make that happen. And I'm ready for it. I know Hero is, and Mark's going to be involved. I don't know if he's going to be touring as much as Hero and I are willing to do. And, Mark had his second kid, the last U.S. tour we did, and he was there with us in spirit. But the guy who plays drums for him, when he plays solo, filled in for him. He's an old friend of ours, Mike Musburger. and he's Ringo's tour manager, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
But he's a great drummer, friend of all of ours. And so, and there's another guy we've been playing with named Jimmy who's really good. So at this point, we don't have to hold back. If we have to tour without Mark, we have his blessing. He's still part of the band. He's still an original member. He's still part of the new record, so all these things that have made it so we've just been kind of not real active, have just dissolved. And now it's like, hey, let's go. Let's do this. So we're not getting any younger, and I couldn't be happier. So I speak for Hero, I think, when I say that, and you guys are going to talk to him in a few days, and we'll get his take on it. But we're super excited, and the world is crazy right now. And I would probably be really depressed if I wasn't doing this. But at the same time, it was pretty crazy in the early 90s too. We were at war, and there was just a lot of uncertainty. And I think for some reason we thrive in these periods. I don't know. I seem to, and I guess it's just a constant thing in life anyway. But we're living in weird times, and part of that weirdness is the weirdness of Truly's fucking full on. Like, okay, let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're excited.
Well, this will be a good part to end this part 1 interview.
Yeah.
So
great. Sorry if I ramble on a bit long, guys.
No, this is great.
No, this has been fantastic. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote in the now? Is there anything that we forgot?
Well, I know that you guys were curious about Jim Carroll, and I will tell you this, that there are the Runnell brothers are making a Jim Carroll documentary.
Oh, cool.
And they flew me down to San Francisco a few months ago to do an interview. And these guys are amazing, cool dudes, and have a really good grip on Jim's career and are passionate about it. And I'm super excited about it for Jim. And, he was a big inspiration to me when we were finishing Kid Coma, and then we got to work together, and we can get into that next time. But I just want to let you guys know that this documentary is happening, and
super cool.
It's, it's going to take a couple of years, but it's about time that this is, in the works as well. So
for sure. And the thing is that we're so excited to have you on, as long as you were satisfied with this interview tonight. That we can
it's great talking to you guys. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we have so much more stuff to talk about for part 2. So,
right.
So this is how it's going to work out. Jeff is the editing wizard over here, and he's going to get it all cleaned up.
Cool. Yeah. Send me the links, because I'll blast them out on the Truly social media. And I think that the guys from Sandy and Dave are super excited to blast it out with their people too. So,
yeah, for sure. And then, share it wherever you possibly can. And then, that's how it'll work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Right on. Thank you guys so much. It's really appreciate you doing this.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for getting us in contact with Hero. Thank you for agreeing to do a part 1 and a part 2 with us. This is exciting, man.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. It's great. So, are you interested in talking to Mark at all, or?
Absolutely.
So cool. Well, yeah, I'll let him know, and I'll put him in touch as well. So he does obviously Truly, but he's got other stuff going on too. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great talking to you guys. Thanks so much, guys. Right, appreciate it.
Take care, man.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
Right, take care. Bye.
grip of death.